Canterbury, I'm Mike Yardley. Welcome to NewsMakers, where we debate the week through Canterbury eyes. It's Politics Unplugged this week, and it's a pleasure to introduce our panel. The MP for Christchurch Central, Labour's Brendon and National Party MP Aaron Gilmore. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
It's been a passionate week in the House as National ploughs on with some of its most contentious policies. Let us begin with the great mining debate, which is now open for public submissions. Should 7,000 hectares of our most precious conservation land be removed from Schedule 4 in pursuit of its mineral wealth, Aaron?
Look, the key question around this is that there's about $200 billion of wealth locked up in our land resource somewhere on the line. Now, this review is a discussion document to look at whether we should do something about that. And I think that's a fair question we should ask. In New Zealand, we have large amounts of oil and coal and gas offshore, and we have large amounts of areas of our conservation estate which was locked up in Schedule 4 that is of low conservation value. So one of the questions is that having that discussion, that debate. I think it's a healthy discussion and debate to have, and that's what the discussion doc's about. And I encourage people to put forward their views. You make it sound also nice and warm and fuzzy. Where do you stand on it? Look, I think when you look at the major differences between New Zealand and Australia is and Helen Clark used to say this, was the massive mineral wealth that Australia had vis-a-vis New Zealand. New Zealand is actually mineral rich. So we should have that discussion. So you think we should unlock? I think we have the potential to make a large amount of money, jobs, and it helps us to help catch Australia. Now, there will be some places where that is completely unsuitable, and I accept that, and I think that's the reason why should have this debate. Do you have any reservations about unsuitability with respect to what has been outlined in the discussion document? Well, I'll give you an example. Pike River coal mine on the west coast exists on conservation land. Yep. If you go there, it's an amazing piece of modern mining technology. It was approved by the Labour Party. It's going to create hundreds of millions of dollars of export earnings for New Zealand. Post that mine life, you won't even know it was there. So I think you can actually do this in a right, proper way, and I think we should have that discussion. I was looking at the Labour Party website this week, and we've got this big banner, yours, not mine's. Yes. Now, the Labour Party, when they were last in office, issued 218 mining permits on dockland, including national parks. So why the hysteria? Because this is on Schedule 4 land, which is the land with the highest conservation values, and that is the point. There's no problem if the land has low conservation values and somebody wants to come in and put in a ski lift or some kind of other venture. But this is the highest value conservation estate. And that is actually part of our fundamental economic building block too, because people like the fact that we are clean, green New Zealand. They like the fact that we have national parks. It's a big magnet for our tourism base. And when you start taking mining into those areas, then you literally undermine that other economic value. So you're all for pursuing the mineral wealth on the conservation estate, as long as it's not Schedule 4? Case by case, yes, and that's what we did. And we did approve 70-odd different concessions through our time in government, but none of them were on this very high value Schedule 4. That's the point of difference. And look at the areas the government is going into. The Coromandel, which is the the place where Aucklanders and a lot of other people go for their holidays. Great Barrier Island. These are areas where there is a lot of tourism activity, and so it should be. But correct me if I'm wrong, aren't there 2 mines already operating on Schedule 4 land? No. Look, there are significant operations that have been approved on conservation land up and down the country. There is everything from coal mine I mentioned before at Pike River to gemstone sort of exploration rights. There is a large number of areas that are currently either being explored or operating in some shape or form. Massive areas have been added to the conservation estate under Schedule 4 under the last government. This review is that is some of that land still appropriate to be in the conservation estate under Schedule 4, and is there a balance that can be done between extracting some of these minerals in an environmentally sensitive way, i.e. underground mining in particular, and she gets some money to be able to pay for the things that people want, schools, healthcare and pensions. We always talk about this issue of balance, don't we? And there are those areas which have been deemed to have the highest conservation values, so they should be roped off. And we have got lots of activity going on in national parks,
in conservation estate, because there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hectares in the conservation estate, and some of it is subject to activity including mining. But you've got to draw the line, and that's where the balance has to be struck.
But look, we're talking here about an area of the conservation estate which, to put into perspective, and there's been arguments over what the perspective is, as a postcard
How
or
many
two,
postcards are you suggesting?
It depends how you describe it, but a postcard on Eden Park. Now, if you describe Eden Park as being the pitch, whatever, you get multiple postcards. But that's what we're talking about, magnitude here. And to extract that, we're adding conservation land to the conservation estate. So actually, there's a net addition to the land of the conservation estate.
7,000 hectares is a lot of Eden Parks.
And we're adding 12,000. So, basically, when you actually look at it, there's actually a net 5,000 hectares to the conservation estate from this discussion.
There seems to be a huge suspicion that National has done a very dirty deal with the mining industry, and obviously what gives rise to that is the fact that nowhere is what is now being proposed was furnished in any National Party manifesto. Why didn't you come clean with the electorate just over a year ago?
Well, that's actually not quite the case. When you actually look at it, we said we're going to undertake some reviews of the Crown Minerals Act, and one of the issues around that is this is a first phase of some of those things. We had a plan in terms of our economic planks, a number of areas where we think we could catch Australia. This is one of the areas where we can actually create a lot of wealth over a period of time, and all New Zealanders can share in that. We think we can manage that in an appropriate way. Just like we currently do with Pike River coal on the west coast, just like people perceive that what we're going to do is dig big holes like we've done, like this at Martha Mine, things like that. That's very unlikely. There's no proposals from any mining company to do anything right now.
Although we have had suggestions in the press today that open cast mining can't be ruled out for Paparoa National Park.
Well, I guess one of the issues at the moment is you've got Paparoa National Park now being mined in a couple of places in terms of the Pike River coal is a classic one. It depends on the mill.
It's outside the national park.
Well, there's access route that goes right through the middle of through the national park, and that was approved by Chris Carter.
So access into the mine.
When you actually look at it, one of the issues is what can we do and what are the trade-offs? And we should have that discussion and debate, and it's a healthy discussion debate.
For
$200 billion, if I could say to you, would you like $200 billion for the invest in New Zealand for the future of our children? Most people are going to say no. One of the discussions we should have is this appropriate decision to make?
All right.
You asked the question whether this was an explicit National Party promise. Prior to the last election, it was about as explicit as the promise to increase GST.
Then again, did the Labour Party manifesto specifically rule out ever touching anything in Schedule 4?
Yes, it did.
Oh, OK, there you go. By the way, with respect to the 100% pure tourism brand, Brendon, could it be suggested that that is just all hyperbole already when you look at the environmental damage around the country?
Don't get me started on this. You're absolutely right. But that is the brand we have chosen as a nation, and it is under some assault.
But aren't we already lying to the world?
No, well, that argument's been put up by people outside this country. But if we are going to continue to present ourselves as a nation that has a very, very good, strong set of environmental values, to market ourselves internationally as a clean, green nation, you can't do that and then start hacking into the really highly valued conservation estate.
The Economist has put New Zealand on notice, essentially, saying we are about to trash that brand if we go ahead with this.
Scaremongering. I mean, you look at the tourist destinations that exist around the world. You know, Australia's one of the biggest miners in the world, and it's one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world. Those things can work hand in hand.
But how many people go to Cooper Pedy?
Well,
seriously.
How many people go visit Denniston to go visit the historical coal mines?
Not many.
How many people go visit now the Macraeways mine? You go to Helen Clark opened the Waihi Mine Visitors Centre 2 years ago. You know, there are tourism and mining can work hand in hand.
All right.
So, I mean, it's
trade clean green,
scaremongering.
Start advertising ourselves as a nation where you can come and visit open cast mines on the National Conservation Estate.
All I can say, I think it's hilarious when you have the Labor Party running around who founded in Blackball by a group of miners have suddenly become anti-mining.
We're not opposed to mining. We're not opposed to mining. We're opposed to mining on the most sensitive areas of the National Conservation Estate.
Prediction time. Will National action its intentions?
I think they'll back off on some of it. You're already seeing the things starting to come apart with MPs like Nikki Kay saying they won't support it.
OK. Do you believe this will happen?
I think there will be, the discussion document will be a voracious debate, and I think there's actually a good discussion to have, and we actually look on a case-by-case basis whether it makes some sense.
Are you winning or losing the argument?
I think it's a good argument to have, and it's finely balanced, I'd say, at the moment. And look, and we will see some good proposals that can operate quite well.
All right. We'll take a break. We'll move from one blowtorch to another, from the conservation estate to the welfare estate. That's next. Do stay with us.